We're getting closer and closer to the release of EA College Football 25. With that, I want to break down some of the underrated teams that I think could be a lot of fun to play with in online 1v1 or just local 1v1 against your friends. This is one of those lists that's not your Ohio States and Georgias, but maybe some of the teams off the beaten path that aren't being talked about as much that are going to be just as fun offensively. We're starting this list off in the Big 12 with some teams that are being talked about a little, but also a lot of teams that are flying under the radar. Going to get this out of the way. Colorado, Arizona, and Utah are not on this list because I think it's pretty well known how fun those teams will be to play with. Baylor is our first of 8 Big 12 teams on this list, by far the most of any conference. The big reason Baylor is on this list is because of who they brought in at quarterback over the offseason. If you don't know the name DeQuan Finn, it's time you start learning. He's one of the best dual threat QBs you've never heard of. Took Toledo to back-to-back MAC championships. He has elite speed and agility at the QB position and has a solid arm. On top of that, Keytron Jackson is a speedster at wideout, and Hal Presley is a big body on the outside. Both of their top running backs return in Dominic Richardson and Dawson Pendergrass, so you could have a very fun rushing attack on your hands, as well as a great passing attack. Now, Iowa State is one that feels pretty obvious, but I don't think enough people are talking about how fun Rocco Becht will be at quarterback. He's a really complete QB that also has the mobility. Their running back, Abu Sama, is one you'll want to use as well. He averaged 7.3 yards per carry and has a great speed acceleration and break tackle combo. At wide receiver, you have the two J's, Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. They're dudes that will be a great combo for you to make your opponent's lives awful. Did I mention that Higgins is 6'4", by the way? Just throw that dude jump balls and see what happens. Now, I think the next two are probably the most fringe teams on whether or not they're really underrated, but the first one is Kansas, and I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Jalen Daniels is one of the best QBs in the country when he's healthy. Fortunately for you, this is a video game, and he won't get hurt. Now, Devin Neal, their running back, is a top RB in the country, giving you a super underrated backfield before we even get to Daniel's weapons. They also got a great backup running back, Daniel Highshaw, who's one of the best twos in the game. Now, at wide receiver, you'll have the 3 top returning dudes led by Lawrence Arnold. So not only will the defense have to stop a great 1-2 combo on the ground, but also a 3-headed receiving room that put up 2,000 yards last year. Good luck to those defenses. Now, Kansas State is next, and I wasn't sure if I should put them on this list because I do feel like they're pretty well known, but I felt like I had to talk about them. They'll have one of the best rushing attacks in the entire country. DJ Giddens is a monster, and Avery Johnson is a great dual threat quarterback. He ran for almost 800 yards last year. They also just happened to sign former 4-star recruit Dylan Edwards out of the portal out of Colorado. If you remember his 4-touchdown game against TCU, yeah, he can do that. Edwards is fast, Giddens packs a punch with elusiveness, and Avery Johnson is just faster than a quarterback should be. Run option with them and tell your opponent good luck stopping it. The wide receiver room is solid, but watch out for transfer Dante Cephas to look like his old Kent State self again. Now, UCF is the next team on this list, and the reason I wanted to make it in the first place. It's a combination of players that isn't getting enough love when I see who people are talking about using when the game comes out. This rushing attack will be lethal. KJ Jefferson is probably a top 5 pure runner at the quarterback position, and RJ Harvey is the most slept-on back in the country. They also just added Penny Boone, who ran for 1,400 yards at Toledo last year with 15 touchdowns. Dude is a beast. It's probably one of the best trio of runners you can find in the country. The triple option will work wonders here. They also have Johnny Richardson, who averaged 6.5 a carry last year. I don't know how much you're going to throw the ball with that, but you have Kobe Hudson, who was a baller, and Ohio transfer Jacoby Jones, who went for 777 yards when he was healthy back in 2022. And I can't forget about Agiye Hall, who is a 62nd ranked player coming out in 2021, has had some issues off the field and came on as a walk-on this past year. But this team is going to be so much fun to use. I encourage everyone to pay more attention to the Knights. Get the bounce house bouncing. How about that? Now, Texas Tech might be the one on this list that I was a little unsure about using. Might not be on the same level as some of those other teams. But if you're not excited about some of the young guys that they have, I don't really know what to tell you. Now, it starts with running back Taj Brooks. That guy is a beast. He is your old school smash mouth runner with a flair for some of the new school tricks. He will be a blast to use in the game. Now, QB Morton Barron has a live arm, but if you want, I wouldn't blame you for starting true freshman quarterback Will Hammond. Kid has tons of potential and talent. They also just got transfer wide receiver Josh Kelly, who was known for making ridiculous catches at Wazoo. So you better believe his spec catch and contested catch ratings will come in handy. And if you're not putting Micah Hudson in the starting lineup, man, you shouldn't be using this team. Elite 5-star wide receiver coming out will be a absolute must start on this team. Oklahoma State, Use Ollie Gordon and use him a lot. He will be the 99 overall in this game. He will be electric, and it will make your opponents hate your life. That's it. That's the only pitch for OK State. Use them. West Virginia is like a lot of other teams on this list, a great running QB and 2 running backs that are absolute beasts. Garrett Green surprised a lot of people last year with his performance, and that can only mean a healthy rating in college football 25. The 2 backs he has with him, Jaheim White and CJ Donaldson, are also way better than anyone gives them credit for. It's your thunder and lightning combo. You won't need to throw the ball with this team, just run it down your opponent's throat. Indiana kicks off our Big Ten rankings, and you might be surprised because I said they'd be a bottom 40 offense in year 1 in my Dynasty Teams video. Well, that was based on the SP Plus rating. Thank you, Bill Connolly, and their team history a little bit. But I, however, have a little bit more faith in the offense than others. Most of that stems from Ohio transfer QB Curtis Rourke, MAC Player of the Year in 2022. This guy can toss the pigskin. Underrated and underappreciated Donovan McCulley will love that at the wide receiver position. That kid is awesome. Not talked about enough. Entered the portal, came back to Indiana after getting a lot of suitors. He's going to be one you want to watch out for and definitely use. And Elijah Surratt follows Kirk Cignetti a year after going over 1K receiving at JMU. Now, the running back room is solid, but let's be honest, you're throwing the ball a lot with this team. When you use Rutgers, you're running the ball with Kyle Monangai 55 times. Do not let anyone else touch it. This guy is so legit and so underrated that the entire Rutgers offense is underrated because of it. Definitely bench Ethan Kaliakmanis, though. Could not stand watching him at Minnesota. Nebraska is on here because of Dylan Raiola. He doesn't have much to throw to outside of Isaiah Nair and proven talent, but man, you want to have some fun? Using Raiola is probably going to be a great time. One of the better freshmen, probably the best freshman QB in the game. Moving to the SEC, South Carolina has one of the sneakier teams on the fun meter. They lost a lot of their top guys, so how could they be any fun, you may be asking? Well, that simply means you don't know Rocket Sanders is now in South Carolina. When this dude is healthy, he might be a top 5 back to use in this game. Again, video game, he will be healthy. Lenoris Sellers is another name that you should learn. He was only a 3-star coming out, but at 6'3", 245, get out of this man's way. Can you imagine running QB power with him and just running over DBs? Now that would be fun. In addition, they also have Oscar Hadaway, who is a great transfer running back out of North Texas. They also brought over Jared Brown from Coastal Carolina after back-to-back near 800-yard seasons to play wide receiver. He joins Nick Harbor, who might be the fastest player in the entire game. Go look at that dude's track times. Unreal. This is a very fun, under-the-radar team that I'm not going to gatekeep. I think everybody should be thinking about using South Carolina. Now, Texas A&M is on this list because Connor Wegman looks like the real deal. Now, they got a lot of unproven talent elsewhere, but it is talent. Texas A&M has done a great job recruiting recently. And when your quarterback has the great accuracy ratings that Wegman will have in this game, you don't have many issues with who's playing wideout. Brock Vandegrift, Tabarian Brown, or Dane Key is going to be heard a lot when you use this offense. First off, Barian Brown is one of the most electric players in the entire country. His agility, elusiveness, speed, and acceleration will be some of the best in the game. Now, Dane Key is a bigger guy that will just shield himself and catch footballs. It's a great combination to have at your wide receiver position with a QB who has all the talent in the world. They also signed Chip Trainum out of the portal, and Trainum always showed the juice at Ohio State, which is going to be a lot of fun to use to keep the defense guessing. Now, before we get into the rest of the list, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you like what you're seeing. Getting into the ACC now, we start with Virginia Tech. Kyron Drones burst on the scene last year as one of the best dual-threat QBs in the country. He ran for 818 yards on top of throwing for just over 2,000 on 285 attempts. He will have this speed and elusiveness that you need at the quarterback position to be dual-threat in this game. Now, he might be lacking a little bit in the accuracy department, but when you can run like he can, you're not really worried about it. Pair him with Bayshul Tutin, who went for nearly 900 yards, and you got yourself one heck of a backfield. Daquan Felt and Jalen Lane are both back to giving that wide receiver room a huge boost. Next on the list is the SMU Mustangs. Now, Preston Stone was a dude last year at quarterback and should have great ratings. He will be a person you have a lot of fun with commanding your offense. Jalen Knighton and LJ Johnson will be your 2 feature backs, and both averaged over 5 a carry last year. Think of all the RPOs you'll be able to run, especially because this is a true wide receiver by committee room. NC State is easy. Grayson McCall, Jordan Waters, Noah Rogers all transferred in, and the G, Kevin Concepcion, is still there. Yeah, I would say this team is going to be a lot of fun to play with. At Cal, Jaden Ott is going to be a bleeping monster and should be enough of a reason for you to use this team. But they also signed Tobias Merriweather from Notre Dame, who had flashes in year 2 and will probably have a solid rating. At QB, they have options, but I'm partial to Ohio transfer CJ Harris. You can really unlock that offense, I feel like, by using him at your QB position. UNC is interesting because it's Omarion Hampton, who you know is a dog, Max Johnson at QB, who we still don't know if he's really any good, and J.J. Jones, who was the only other bright spot for UNC at wide receiver last year. I have faith in Kobe Paystor, even if others have lost it, but really this is kind of like Cal. Use Omarion Hampton because he's a really, really good football player and don't think twice about it. Next is Syracuse. Now, Fran Brown gave this team a lot of talent, and it's yours to use. LaQuint Allen is one of the holdovers and is one of those guys that should be talked about more, but isn't because he plays at Syracuse. I think Kyle McCord has the tools to be a great QB to use in the game. I think his accuracies will be solid, and he'll have a good arm. Fran Brown also brought in 2 wide receivers with him that were stuck behind the other studs at Georgia, so maybe they're just some hidden talent. Zeke Haynes is one of them. He was a solid 4-star wideout coming out of high school, so maybe he will unlock something with him. Boise State starts off our G5 section and is probably the most fun of the bunch. Just using Ashton Jeanty puts this team amongst the top ranks here. He had nearly 2,000 yards of total offense last year. He's super elusive and good long speed and acceleration. Also should have a high break tackle rating. Now you add former 5-star top 15 player Malachi Nelson at QB, and you've got yourself a super fun duo. They also added Chris Marshall, who was a former 5-star at Texas A&M before he was kicked off the team, but the talent's there. The talent is there, and that's really all you care about here. Colorado State makes this list because Torrey Horton is that good. He's the type of guy that NFL teams wish came out last year. Now, it helps that QB Braden Fowler-Nicolosi has a good arm, even if he has some accuracy issues. They have some other new faces after losing Dallin Holker and Justin Ross Simmons to the NFL, but Horton alone makes them a fun team to play with. Now, if you want a Group of 5 quarterback that could possibly compete to win the Heisman, it's at Memphis. Seth Hennigan has a live arm and elite accuracies, which is all you need, right? He's got good enough mobility to help you escape pressure and will have good throw on the run ratings to boot. He's got his top 2 receivers back and better than ever. Rock Taylor is a big-bodied athletic freak that'll go up and get it. And Demir Blankumsey is a speedy guy to take the top off the defense. Even losing Blake Watson at running back, this offense is going to be so much fun to use in the game. They added Mario Anderson at running back from South Carolina. He went for 750 yards last year. Should be a good addition to that run game. People are going to pull up being like, you're using Memphis? And you'll drop 40 on their head and they won't know what hit them. Okay, maybe I lied about Hennigan having the best odds. Maybe it's Caden Salter instead. At Liberty, he had over 1,000 yards on the ground and nearly 3,000 passing yards just last year. If you want a fun video game type player, it's probably him. They also returned Quentin Cooley, who went for 1,500 yards last year at nearly 6.5 per carry. He might not have the best speed, but he's going to be a pain for your opponent to take down. That Liberty rushing attack will be electric. They bring back Treon Sibley, who's a bigger body receiver that can go up and get it. Going to be a very hard team to tackle. At App State, Joey Aguilar will be one of those QBs you use that will just feel so clean in the pocket. He's got a great arm and is very accurate with the ball. He doesn't have a ton of running ability, but can do enough to avoid pressure and make plays. You can be an athlete if you need him to. He'll be throwing it to some big dudes on the outside in Kristen Horn and Caden Robinson. Both are 6'2 bodies, and Robinson is great at catching it over the middle. Kanye Roberts and Anderson Castle return to the RB room and should be a solid 1-2 punch for your offense as well. South Florida rounds out the list. Byron Brown and Naquan Wright as a rushing duo will give your opponent nightmares. Oh yeah, Brown also has his 1,000-yard receiver Sean Atkins back for another season. He's a speedy slot receiver that will cause trouble. He's got another speedster too in Naeem Simmons that hits for the big play a lot. Add in 6'2 Purdue grad transfer Abdur Rahman Yassin, and you have yourself a lot of playmakers with an elite dual-threat QB that can push the ball downfield. That sounds like a lot of fun. There's the list. Make sure to let me know of any other teams that I forgot in the comments below. Everyone is looking for that under-the-radar team to use, and your comment could be helpful in finding that. Make sure you provide some reasoning, too, so people can get familiar with that team and see if it's a good fit for how they want to play. Thank you all so much for watching. See ya.